they came because they thought I was going to say something good. So they loved me in advance of my coming, so I love them back. And if I say that, immediately my body feels fine, and all the worries go away, and I sit down and I teach. And if I do that for a little bit and I look at them, they don't look so unfamiliar to me anymore. They don't look like a room full of faces I don't know. They look like faces I do know, because actually everybody looks like everybody, you know. So if you look around, everybody looks a little bit familiar. You know, this one looks like that one looks like that. You look around, it's less of a gulf between. I think about that when we do a blessing practice for beings all over the world that, you know, that aren't related to us. But we can imagine people getting up in the morning, people taking a bath, people bathing their child, people teaching school, people going to school, people cooking, people washing up, people having fights, people making love, people getting born, people getting buried, all the things that are going on in the world, just like all the things that are going around in my personal world, all over this globe, people doing that. Then you think, then it's not so hard to wish well for all those people. We're kind of like lost in space on this rock floating around where the icebergs are melting too fast, and who knows how long it'll float here. And to really, you know, this is a spaceship that's in jeopardy. So really, to have compassion for all the people. You know, the first time I went to a mindfulness retreat, my first long retreat was 14 days, but once before that, I went for a weekend in San Jose, and my husband had gone previously, and he was very excited about it. He'd actually gone away on a longer retreat. And he came back from his retreat and he said, you have to try this, you have to try this. And so I agreed to go and try this weekend retreat in San Jose. And he drove me down and left me and was going to come back on Sunday. And I had such a hard time. First of all, I had a tremendous headache the whole time because no one told me there wasn't going to be any caffeine there. And so I had a monumental headache. And my whole body hurt. And we were probably 20 people in this one small two-bedroom private house, and sleeping all over the place on mattresses on the floor, and getting dressed and undressed right next to strangers, men, women, everybody that I didn't know, and eating food that I wasn't exactly used to, and sharing very minimal toilet situations. And besides that whole inconvenience of the place and the headache, I didn't really understand the instructions, and I'm sitting on a bench the whole time. My back hurts. I couldn't do anything with my mind at all. Mostly what I spent the weekend doing was planning the speeches I was going to make to my husband when he picked me up about what were you thinking about, and, you know, what could you possibly be imagining. And one of the things that, and 2 months later, I was on a plane going up to Oregon to sit on a 14-day retreat. So people say, well, what happened? You know, you had such a terrible time. Why did you go again? And I'm not sure why. I think there were two reasons. First of all, I think that even though I felt so bad in my body and in my mind, I think I listened to what the teacher was saying about the possibility of having a mind that was peaceful and that met its experience in a cordial way, and which really is really the summation of the possibility. It could meet its experience in a cordial way. It could meet people in a cordial way. It could have a benevolent heart on everything. And I think I got that. I must have gotten it through the fog of discomfort. The other thing I got is on the mantelpiece of this particular living room. There was a little plaque that you buy sometimes in national parks, in the stores in national parks, especially around here where there are all the redwood trees. So it's a piece of redwood burl, and it's polished and varnished, and usually it's got a little saying that's etched into it, like home sweet home and sisters are friends forever, and those kind of homey sayings. And I was doing my walking meditation back and forth in front of that mantelpiece. And on this particular burl, it said, "Life is so difficult. How can we be anything but kind?" And I thought to myself, that really spoke to me. And I thought, if that's the Torah that they're learning here, then I'll stay. I remembered that long after it. And I don't know if that's why I stayed, or if it was the promise of peace, or both. But I think that this is actually to, it's really the purification of the heart. It's really the purification of the soul. And when it's pure, when it's not tied up with its stories that carry resentments and heaviness and contention, then it's free to really love. A friend of mine died recently. She had done quite a lot of practice. I admired her tremendously for her tremendous steadiness in dying, because she had cultivated such a non-contentious heart, in fact, an appreciative heart, that the last conversation that I had with her on the telephone, she died in a hospice in Florida, where she was so weak that the nurse had to take the phone and hold it to her ear, day probably before she died. And we talked, and her voice was very tired. And I said that Sylvia tomorrow, and she said, "You know, this part is so hard." So I said, "Yeah, I know, but, not too long." And she said, "Oh, wait a minute. The nurses just are fixing my blankets here." She said, "The nurses here have been wonderful. They've been so good. They have taken such good care of my body." And up until the last minute, her world has not closed in on her. There were still the nurses out there, and still her bond of appreciation with her. Her appreciation of their kindness, her kindness to me to leave me with that legacy. I will leave you with, for this talk at least, with this last poem. This is a poem by Naomi Shihab Nye. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you can know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop, the passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I who you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. That, by the way, is the second poem that I carry with me wherever I go. Because somewhere or another, if I spend a week with people, those are the two things that I want to say. We need to stop and look. And in the end, it's just kindness. So we'll sit for a minute.